And the one more piece I'll say is I am worried now with COVID, because I'm guessing you and we didn't talk about you getting into sales when we got together, but I'm guessing you did just because of who you are and what you do, that you've done a lot of networking early in your career, continue to do, right? Face-to-face, meeting people in a networking event right? Doing a lot of that. I did that my entire 5-6 years. I went to every networking group I could go to.
We used to have user groups back in the day, right?
Exactly. I would B&I and all these different things. And then I would go to the events at night and I would shake hands, kiss babies, all that stuff. Yeah. And all those skills to be able to interact with people in a face-to-face, reading body language, seeing people avoid you, opening up, that was so valuable to me. And now that we're in this virtual world, where reps they basically go to school remotely and then they move into the workforce and they're remotely and they have none of this. And it's the same thing with the going into the office. And people are probably going to hate this. I think that a sales rep has to be in the office for the first 2 years of their sales career. Yeah. Because you learn so much just by being around other people and listening in and osmosis and all that other stuff. So I just think it's a critical part that I'm worried right now is being ripped away from their development, which is why I think we're 80% are going to move under operations and marketing, because it's easier to click buttons and do all this other stuff than to actually have a conversation with somebody. Yeah.
Before we met at Dreamforce a week before, I was out at SaaStr, and I was literally walking around and they didn't know who I was or what I was. And I was probably, a lot older than everybody else. So they should figure, okay, maybe I'm a decision maker, but they were so awful. I'd be like, aren't you going to say anything? He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, this is it's a big ass trade show outside. I'm walking by your booth. I'm pausing to look. What are you waiting for me to kind of give you an order? And I can't tell you how many conversations I had. I'm like, what are you thinking about?
We did that at Inbound. So it was hysterical. It was one of the first events I had attended for a while, right? And look, we all, got to knock the dust off a little bit, all of us, right? So I hadn't been out.
This is your walk. You're not cold calling. Somebody's walking by right there.
Yeah. But that's my point. So what was hysterical to me as a 46-year-old man who, used to network every day, all day, and was ripped out of it for a while and plugged back in, guys like you and we could jump right back in and start to engage and start to carry a good conversation and not let it be awkward and not be pitching you, hey, Randy, I got the right, that type of thing. But a lot of the newer kids in sales, because they hadn't been out in front of people and they maybe graduated college in COVID and not had that personal interaction, the awkwardness was so real. You'd be sitting there, me, you, and somebody else would be sitting in just talking to each other. And there'd be that, that rep that would stand there, just a little bit far outside and just kind of and try to sneak their way into the conversation. And I'd be like, finally, I'd be like, look, dude, just come on into the conversation. Just you're weirding me out right there. You're creeping me out. Get into the conversation. And then when they got into the conversation, it'd be like, so, we're the leading provider. And I'm like, good Lord, kid, just relax a little bit here. So just that dynamic is such I'm worried that they're not getting that exposure to be able to converse with people in a real way without always coming across like they're pitching them or something.
Yeah. They say, what do you do when you got your friends at a bar? Are you not able to converse and whatever? It's crazy. Yeah. So we have, thanks for those that commented. So, as a reminder, this is LinkedIn Live. You can hear us or see us. We cannot see you, but anything you post, we got Tucker behind the scenes as always, so we'll get to it as best we can. I'm going to skip over Ashley's technical stuff that I don't understand on Power Tools. But anyway, Tom Hannafin said, yes, we once called it a Rolodex. Yep. That's the other thing, right? You got this friggin' LinkedIn talking about shooting fish in a barrel. How easy is it to, as you said before, right? Okay, you're not going to go to the CEO and say, hey, who's in charge of this? Because you already know. I mean, the old days, you had to actually call through the secretary or the admin and go figure it out. And now you got everything right there, right?
And again, that's an example of something that I'm glad happened for me. I started networking far before LinkedIn came out, right? And I wrote down my number here. I was LinkedIn member 36,541. So literally one of the first, and I think the first 15,000 members on LinkedIn were dummy accounts just to show that they had some people on the platform. So I was super early, but it automatically made sense to me as soon as I saw it. I didn't even know what it was, but I was like, oh, okay. And all it did was allow me to take what I did every day, all day, and now put technology to it to optimize the hell out of it and be a lot more efficient. That's what I'm going back with the technology. It's like we teach the technology first, and then we try to reverse engineer the skills. You know what I mean? I'd rather, if I was running a full-blown sales org, I actually wouldn't give, I would teach on business acumen for the first month. I wouldn't even teach them about the product. I would just teach them about how to have a conversation in business and what a CEO cares about, what a CRO actually cares about. Have some CROs and CEOs into the team to talk to them about that. Then I would give them some basic sales skills. And then I would give them the product knowledge and territory and no tech. Literally not one tech. Maybe I'll give you LinkedIn, but I'm not going to give you SalesLoft. I'm not going to give you Outreach. I'm not going to give you Gong. I'm not going to give you Zoom Info. I'm going to give you LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And then I'm going to see you sell. And I'm going to watch you do this. And then as you refine your abilities, then I'll layer on the technology so you can start to expedite it. But without the foundational knowledge of all this, it all falls apart. And you know, one quick story. Morgan Ingram used to work for me. And when he first started, he was a 25-year-old kid. He was an SDR, great SDR too. And we got, came on board, and I put together this model, and we came up with cadences and all this other stuff. And he was great at it. But what happened was his results just kind of plateaued. And he came to me one time. He's like, John, I'm a little confused. I feel like I'm doing all the right stuff here, but I'm just not getting the results that I was expecting to get based on all the work that we put together. And I said, Morgan, your results aren't going to change until something does. And he goes, what is it? I go, until you start giving a shit. And he was like, what? I was like, until you start caring, like genuinely. I go, look, I know you care about your job, and I know you care about working here and all that stuff, but until you genuinely start caring about that person on the other end of that phone or the other end of that email, and thinking of more than a number, and actually as a person who wakes up in the morning, has challenges, gets yelled at by their boss, until you start thinking of them in that regard, your results aren't going to change. And that's what I think the technology is ripping away from us. It's disconnecting us from the human being and the give a shit factor. And I can't do anything for you if you don't give a shit. I really can't. There's nothing I can do, right? It's like you can lead a horse to water type of thing. But once you care, woo, man, I'll give you as many techniques and tips and structures you could possibly imagine to get to the level of unconscious competence, right? Because that's like the goal, is to kind of get to the point where you don't need the techniques. You don't need that stuff because you just are. And that's what the journey is. But I can't do anything for you until you get to that point. And I think the technology has taken that point away from a lot of people.
Yeah. And it used to be still is or should be a numbers game, right? You do these behaviors, these activities, here's the results. And I've got a lot of CRO friends who, you can't really push on kind of the work ethic side of things anymore. You gotta be kidding me.
Don't even get me started. I mean, when I was doing training, I will say, I mean, this is me now sounding like my dad, the work ethic piece is a big concern. I get the whole work-life balance, and work isn't everything and all that other stuff. But people ask me, John, what's the secret to success, right? And it's easy. It's working your ass off. That's the secret to success. Like people say work smart. Like, shut up. You got to work. Yeah, fine. Work smart, but you got to work your ass off to be successful in this game and in any game. So this whole, I would do trainings before COVID hit. I would do trainings, and we usually do 8:30 to 4:30, right? No matter where we are in the world. And at around 4:30, what I'll do is between 4:30 to 5, I'll answer questions from the reps or whatever. And then I'll open up my laptop and check emails. And I'll usually bail out by 5:30 to go to the airport to the next training. I can't tell you the last time I've been in an office at 5:30 in the afternoon and had anyone be there. And I don't that level of mentality that doesn't resonate with me. And I'm not talking COVID now, like, okay, everybody's home and all that other stuff. I'm literally talking when we were all at the office, the past 5 years, 5 o'clock bell rings, out of here. And I'm just like, how do you plan to be successful if you're watching the clock, if you're trying to get out? That means you don't love what you do. Yep. That's a sign, by the way. And I'm not saying you have to be overly passionate about everything you do, but if you're waiting until Friday, if you're a weekend warrior, if you can't wait till 5 o'clock, man, that means your life is rough. Because people talk about this work-life balance. I think that work-life balance is crap. Because by talking to me about work-life balance, what you're saying is you work and then you live. Yeah. And to me, you work about a third of your life, You sleep about a third of your life. So with that mentality, you're telling me you only live about a third of your life. That's pretty sad to me. To me, I look at work-life integration. Like when you love what you do, yes, it's still work, but it's not work. You know what I mean? It's not like punch the clock and good Lord, let me drone through my day and quiet quit and all that other crap. Like I really hope that COVID woke a lot of people up to take a step back and think to themselves, what's really important in my life, like what my values and those type of things, and then go look for companies and opportunities that marry up with those and stop just doing what you're supposed to do. I hope that, is one good thing that came out of COVID.
Yeah. Dave Noor, who good friend, and I started off doing the podcast with, calls it, work-life blending. And, lots of examples, but you and I can exchange notes over a weekend. I can't tell you how many clients I work with where I'll send an email on something that's important to the sales rep on like a Thursday, Friday, and then they respond kind of Monday, Tuesday, and the CEOs at all those companies will respond similarly right away. And you don't want to be a total jerk, but it's the old, hey, can I give you some feedback just so you know, here's how I operate, here's how your CEO operates. So you might want to amp it up or ramp it up. And then talking about 5 o'clock, when I was at EMC, Jack Egan, who's a great longtime exec there, he had admin Eileen, who was awesome, and we'd be in the bullpen. And if anybody would come close to leaving at 5, the joke was, Levi, there's a Levi jeans called 501. So it should be like, Levi 501, and nobody would dare, be anywhere near that. But, God forbid anybody calls anybody out now. Hey, let me I just want to get to some of these comments here, Tucker, if we can. So Mark Stevenson, great sales leader, says cold calling expertise is critical in sales, but it is a life skill. Totally is. And totally, if you want to find a future mate, it's probably also good off hours as well. Rick Diana, who's a awesome talent agent. He's actually one of the few where, not necessarily a recruiter, but, if you're looking, he'll kind of help you, kind of, not that you need sprucing up, but kind of spruce you up and get you out there. So he says Tom Hanovan or Card File, talking about the Rolodex. And then Rick goes on to say, Mark, every human being might be well served to make a few cold calls sometime during the career. Grit, absolutely. Cold calling, not a bad term. Rick's on fire here. Mark says, super point, connecting with emotional IQ, more fun to feel like you're making a difference all day long. Yep. And then Tim jumps in and says, great podcast, 100% agreement on the people process versus tech first. And question for you here, John, are you seeing your clients acquiring more tech or taking a pause and consolidating for 2023?
Consolidation. I'm seeing it all over the place, especially with the down economy right now. Everybody's looking to cut costs. And I think what happened over the past few years, I think everybody's freaking out about these layoffs. And to me, these layoffs, a lot of it is just, especially in the tech SaaS space, it's just a correction because they were over bloated with the funding.
Plus performance management, right? God forbid they do performance managing. So just a lazy excuse out. More times than not, the person deserved to be let go, for lack of better words, right?
Exactly. So I think that's what's happening. But I think with that, now they're looking at the tech stack and realizing they were over bloated on the tech stack, because the challenge in the tech stack right now, it's weird. It's we do this a lot with the tech stack. And so if we think about way back in the day, right, dating both of us, but, computers started with mainframes, right? So there was the centralized hub, and then you got these dumb terminals to everybody else. And then it went to the personal computers. It's like, oh, cool. Now we got personal computers. Everybody's got their own shit. And then it went back to the cloud. Right. And then we went back to so it's the same thing with these platforms. You have point solutions that then kind of grow up and become platforms. Right. And then those platforms cover some of it. But then you have point solutions that cover the stuff that doesn't. And then you go consolidated back to platforms. And then you do more point solutions and then platforms. So I think we're in a consolidation to a platform play right now. So if you are not a must have, if you do not show direct impact on revenue, or savings or cost, whatever it is, that you're getting cut. Because the challenge right now is, a lot of these platforms like the Salesloft, the Outreaches, those type, like Salesforce was the first platform, right? I mean,
right.
This conversation. Then now we're layered on top Salesloft and Outreach, and those companies are basically saying, don't use Salesforce, don't log into Salesforce. You can stay on us. You can use Salesforce as the record of way to keep all the records and stuff, but play within our stack. And then you have like Salesloft doing stuff like conversation intelligence and these type of things. Now, call recording. Now, Gong, for instance, I'll give you an example. I love Gong. I think Gong's fantastic, but it's, and I know it's elongating through the full cycle, but Gong is a call recorder. It's great at it. And it's not 10 times better than most of the other solutions out there. But if I have a platform that already does call recording and it's 70% as good as Gong, do I really need to invest in Gong? So anything that's not being adopted right now, and if you look at usage metrics, anything that is like below 80% usage metric right now in your app is if I was a customer success person, I would be combing through all of our clients and finding, how do I increase adoption? How do I get the reps to use this stuff? Because whenever this renewal is coming up, we're getting cut if we're not in the 80% range.
Totally. And in Gong's defense, they similarly are doing things in the forecasting side. The sales
that's why I'm saying they're expanding to a platform, right? So now you're going to see SalesLoft and Outreach tried that. Now Gong's going to layer on top of that and try to kind of take over that stack. And then they're going to have to acquire a bunch of stuff. So everybody's evolving, but it's all right now. It's consolidation over point solutions all day, every day.
Yeah, and I'll give Tim a commercial. He's from our sponsor today, Convertive, and a lot of what they can help with is figure out, it's just not just the tools, but kind of what's the data that you really need and want. So as opposed to tool-based decision, kind of what is it that the CRO or the decision or the reps need, and kind of how do you create that? So thanks for that, Tim. And Rick asks how to carry a conversation, be scripted, but always lay down the script so thick. Know your audience and your environment. In other words, would you say the same thing to a CIO in a bar that you might say in his conference room?
Yeah. I mean, I think you got to be a chameleon. You gotta understand how to relate to almost anybody and anywhere. And scripts, as much as I'll give you my opinion on scripts. I used to be adamant against them, but I understand their purpose, especially when you're a brand new kid in sales and you don't know what you're talking about. A script is healthy because it just gives you something to say. But the point of a script, I think, is to get you started. And then if you can't make that script your own very, very soon, then I don't see what the point is, right? So that's the idea. So I like structure. Like what we train a lot on is not necessarily scripts, but structure, because we can play within this structure. And here's my little analogy for how the generational divide can work together too. I wrote a blog post on this a while ago called Why the Gen Xer Hired a Millennial and How We Work Together. And it was me and Morgan. And here's the deal. You and I, when we were growing up, I almost guarantee when you were growing up, if you were a kid and you were bored, your mom just kicked you out of the house. And we're like, just go play. You know what I mean? And just be back by dinner. Don't burn anything down. Don't break anything, right? So it was just like, it was one of those like, go figure it out. So you and I, we'd run around, we'd break things, we'd burn stuff down, whatever it is, we'd be back by dinner and be fine. Now, my daughter, and I'm going to, she's 12. I see it even with us. Every minute of a kid's life is structured. So you have school from this hour to this hour. Then you have soccer practice from this hour to this hour. Then you have your iPad for 30 minutes. Then you have homework for 2 hours. Then you have this. So literally, and by the way, they're all taught to the test. So MCAS, all that stuff. So now you take a kid who has been structured their entire life and taught to the test. Yeah. You put them into the real world to get a job. And then you have some jackass manager like me who says, all right, figure it out. They look at you sideways like, what are you talking about? Figure it out. Tell me what to do. And then the reaction for somebody like me or somebody like you is, well, you don't know what to do? I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. Here's a script. Here's a template. And you give a kid who is taught to the test and structure their entire life a template or a script. They will read the template. They will send the template. They will read the script, and they will put no thought into it. Now, on the flip side, you put structure on me, and I'm guessing the same thing with you. If I try to put structure on you, you're probably like, I don't like this. There's got to be a better way. I'm going to break this. Don't put structure on me. But we like building structure. Like I love building structure. So the generational component of this is Gen Xers and above need to create the structure that the generations under us can thrive within. Because if you give them guardrails and some guidance, they will execute within the structure better than you and I ever would. But without that structure, they're literally all over the place. You know what I mean? And they don't know, they'll stop and be like, I don't know what to do at this point. And they'll just wait for somebody to show up. And again, I'm being massively generalized here, but I see it day in and day out.